Hello, and welcome once again to the Proxycast. It is currently the summer solstice today, and I'm planning on staying up to see the sun set and then rise again pretty much immediately after it sets. Um, and you may have noticed that the last episode got copyright claimed for the music that I used, which is a shame. So I've put the music back on. We are listening to Grievances and Dead Moors, which is an album by Nearest at Disneyland, which is the old alias that Lauren Boosfeld used to use before she started making music under her own name. So I'm hoping, because I've used songs from this era before, and they didn't get copyright claims, so I'm hoping she just, because she's using her real name now, she just no longer cares about the old stuff. That's a little bit loud. Let's turn that down, that's a little bit loud. Okay, so today's topic is a little bit of a joke, but it's also a little bit fun to look at. So this was 4 years ago now on Reddit. User not tallest egg posted this question in the No Stupid Questions subreddit. And there's a baby magpie looking at me through my window. Isn't that cute? Wish you guys could see the baby magpie. But anyways, and I'm glad I could get this screenshot, because Reddit right now, most subreddits have like shut down in protest of, I don't know, new API changes. I don't use Reddit much, so I'm not really all too sure about what this is. But anyway, the question proposed, whatever, there, is how would life evolve in an infinite McDonald's? Let's say some guys in the future make a dimension where it's just an infinite McDonald's and they just throw 10 million of every animal on Earth into there. How would life evolve there? Would it be a place dominated by invertebrates? Anyways, is the first auto-completed result when you search up how would life. Yeah, and this got a lot of responses. Most of them sort of just jokes and memes. But this is something that really has interested me for a long time. As you know, I'm quite interested in, like speculative evolution, speculative biology and stuff. So I was curious, how would life evolve on the infinite McDonald's? I dubbed this the infinite McDonald's theorem, after the infinite monkey theorem, which is if you get like an infinite amount of monkeys on a typewriter, eventually they could just like type out like everything that's ever been said or ever will be said, something like that. But I called it the infinite McDonald's theorem because I thought it was funny. No real reason other than that. So yeah, the infinite McDonald's theorem. How would life evolve in an infinite McDonald's? And I actually ended up typing this all out a while ago, but I thought I would do this in video form to make it more interesting. I only have a couple images to show today. Before we get into what I believe the results of the infinite McDonald's theorem would be, I did like an AI infinite McDonald's prompts. How do I get this to be useful? There we go. That's nice. So, I used the Midjourney AI to generate pictures of an infinite McDonald's, so I could sort of show you, or at least like sort of have something to visualize as an infinite McDonald's, if that makes sense. So this is with I did it with all the different versions as well, because I was curious to see. This is what I often do when I use AI, for just like, if I want to use it for like specifically like something in my work, I will use a specific version, but when I just sort of, I'm curious about something, I will put it through all the different versions to see what it comes up with. And so this is with the latest version, version 5. And yeah, I think this is pretty good. You can see the McDonald's logos there. And I like this sort of the long corridor with the lots of different rooms. With, as you can see there, like the burger making materials, I suppose. I've never worked at McDonald's. My brother does, so he would probably know what all this is. But yeah, that's quite interesting. I do imagine there being a lot of corridors in the infinite McDonald's. I imagine it's sort of like instead of it being like one massive McDonald's with loads of animals in it, or a bunch of identical McDonald's all joined together, I imagine it more sort of like a backrooms type deal, where they're sort of randomly segmented. Like they're all, of course, they're all McDonald's. They'll have the different things that a McDonald's has, but every McDonald's is different because they're all in different buildings. Every copy of McDonald's is personalized. I imagine it's sort of more like that, where you have lots of like different shapes of McDonald's buildings all connected to each other, maybe by like these corridors. So maybe less like this, where they're all identical, but I do imagine there would be some sort of things like this in between like the different McDonald's, if that makes sense. There isn't like an outdoors, it's just a McDonald's dimension, the infinite McDonald's dimension. So that was with version 5, and this was with version 4. As you can see, this is again sort of more like the back end of a McDonald's, which I think that's quite interesting that it did that, because when you think of a McDonald's, you don't tend to think of like what's going on out the back, but that is definitely like a part of it. So yeah, there's not really, you can't really see like the other rooms, but I do think that's interesting as well, where you have like the boxes of food. Would there be like animals that would eat that? Probably. I didn't think about that when I wrote up my big the solution to the infinite McDonald's theorem. And this is with version 3. I love version 3 so much. It was my favourite version. I hated when they swapped to version 4, because it's just too realistic to me, and I guess that's fine if you want a realistic picture, but I much prefer, it has like a certain style to it, I feel, the older versions of Midjourney, with all these little sort of dusty artifacts. It looks very grimy and grungy, whereas if I wanted a picture sort of like that, I could just go, if I wanted a realistic looking picture, I could just go take a picture. Though granted, something like an infinite McDonald, you can't take a picture of that, but you know, if I wanted a picture of like a room, I'd go Google a picture of a room, you know. And I mean, I guess it's good if you know, because AI images can't be copyrighted, so that's what my dad uses it for. If he wants a picture that isn't copyrighted, he will use an AI picture. So, but yeah, I love this. I feel like I'm not really the sort of open looking ceiling. This sort of makes me think of a warehouse. That's not really what I had in mind. But this with the different rooms like that, if that ceiling was lower, and I suppose it kind of is. I guess it's hard to tell. But yeah, something like that would be different rooms. Awesome. And then version 2 this was. And still pretty impressive how even in this early version it has the McDonald's logo. And again, yeah, this is sort of something I would imagine it being like with these tables. And then there'd be like, that would then just sort of lead into another McDonald's. Rather than, you know, that sort of like doorway would just lead to another McDonald's, you know? And then we get to version 1. It's just craziness. This is the version I usually use for like my art, if I want just sort of like a background or something, because I love how it gives like the suggestion of something without it actually showing something. I think that's really cool. But yeah, that whole like AI, I could do a whole nother video on it. Maybe that'll be the topic for the next one, would be AI. And I think I'm gonna have this picture as the main picture on the screen, just because it, you know, it gives a good, clear example of what an infinite McDonald's dimension could look like, I think. So, with my version of the infinite McDonald's theorem, I did tweak it slightly. Hold on, I'm just searching to get up to see what I wrote. You can listen to these jamming tunes. Sorry if you don't like, I don't know what genre this is, glitchcore, breakcore? I don't know, it's Lauren Boosfeld, I love her music. So I'm probably gonna use this as background music for every episode now. And I guess it kind of fits with the album being named Grievances and Dead Malls, because like an infinite McDonald's dimension, kind of like a dead mall type area. Anyway, so I tweaked the rules slightly. As you know, I picture this as sort of like a backroom situation where it's all McDonald's, but it's all, you know, they're all different shapes of McDonald's. But they're all distinctly a McDonald's. Like, they all have the stuff you'd expect, like dining area, kitchens, bathrooms, like the employee lounge, you know, they'd have, you know, like, and then like managers' offices. You know, they have, you know, each one has all the stuff you'd expect from McDonald's, but they're all different shapes. But the one thing that I changed mainly is, instead of it where it's like 100 of, no, not 100, what was it, like 10 million, I think, 10, instead of it being 10 million of every animal, there's one animal that's missing, and that is humans, because I think that would be boring, I think, because a human in a McDonald's, that's just like normal, you know? There's nothing fun or interesting about that. The humans would just dominate. They would, you know, it would just be boring. So I left out humans, and I imagine, you know, I'm imagining one, like, a million of every animal, but that's hard to, like, picture and hard to explain. So, not necessarily what the point of this video is, if that makes sense. I'm not gonna go over like every single animal species and be like, oh, this one will do this one will do that. There are like some sort of animal species that I will mention that I imagine in certain situations, but it's more sort of like a general rule of what I think is gonna happen. And now the original post, it just said animals. It said if you put 1 million of every animal, so that excludes like plants and bacteria and like fungi and archaea, I guess, you know. It's only things in the kingdom of Animalia that count in my mind. Okay, so here we go. We're in the infamous McDonald's. The genesis of it, the start of it all. Bloop! They just put down like all the animals, and immediately after that happens, most of the aquatic life dies. Okay, so like whales dead, dolphins dead, sharks dead, sea urchins dead, corals dead, you know, all the sea animals, anemones dry up, like a starfish can't breathe, it dies. Yeah, but there are some exceptions, because remember, this McDonald's is infinite, right? And the animals just spawn in randomly, so some of them could spawn into like a toilet and like live in like the septic tanks. And as well, like some sort of like octopus and like a lungfish and like a mud skipper, they could probably, if they spawned near a toilet, they could probably climb, get in the toilet, I reckon. Or a sink maybe, get in the sink, turn the taps on, and that would keep them moist. And as well, because octopuses are like quite intelligent, they could probably like sort of learn to like live in just like a little sink and then like come out, get a little bit of food, quit, bring back to sink. Anyway, so immediately, you know, after everything spawns, all the predatory animals start killing the herbivores and eating them, because what are you gonna do? It's an abundance of food. That's like if you put me in front of like a big cake or like a big wheel of cheese, I'm gonna eat that, you know. And then the smaller predators will be able to scavenge on like the dead marine life, you know, like the scavengers, sort of like a vulture, you know, like a fox. That they will scavenge on like the dead whales and stuff, and like the wolves and the lions, they would eat, they would like kill and eat like the gazelles and whatever. So that lasts for a while, and because there's no fungi here or bacteria or anything, things don't get moldy, things don't break down after they die. So this lasts for, you know, quite a while, these food sources. And the insects, of course, with loads of corpses, they will lay their eggs in the corpses as well. So during this era, which I call the Genesis era, not great for herbivores, terrible for aquatic life, excellent for like bugs and for apex predators, and it's alright for the smaller predators, but they still need to be wary of the big predators. So that's the Genesis era. However, eventually, of course, all the herbivores die out because there's no plants to eat. Other than, I guess, maybe like chips, and a Mc salad. But with that abundance of predators, because it's like in nature there'll be like one like apex predator and then a bunch of herbivores, but because this is specifically 10 million I'm sorry, this is so stupid, but that's why I love it, because I'm thinking about this scientifically, and it's about what if someone put 10 million animals in a McDonald's. Anyway, so because it's like a 10, you know, like a 1-to-1 ratio pretty much, instead of like the 1 to like 10 ratio, or however it is in nature, the predators will quite easily kill all the herbivores, I think. I don't think you would see any herbivores. Omnivores would be alright, because they got meat still. And of course they got the McPlant burger. they got the McPlant, which is the funniest. The funniest McDonald's menu item name is the McPlant, guys. I think that's the end of the album. I might need to hit replay. Yeah, it's a very short album. Is there a way to loop? Repeat all. Yeah, there we go. That'll be easier. So, yeah, so that is what I think happens in the Genesis era. And then this is the next era. I don't know how... The Genesis era, I guess, doesn't last for very long. I'm not sure. I can't really put a time scale on it. But maybe like a couple years, perhaps. Anyway, so then once all the herbivores die out, though, the larger predators, they don't have anything to hunt anymore. You know, they've killed off all the herbivores, eaten them all, picked them clean. It's just bones. So after that, they've got nothing to eat anymore. So they turn to the dead marine life, which previously the scavengers had been scavenging on, and the bugs and stuff. So they then start eating, and of course, because marine life tends to be quite a lot larger, because the water supports the bodies more. So like a whale with nothing to like make it rot away, that will last like forever pretty much. That's gonna last a really long while. Excuse me, I need a sip. It's a really hot day today. Sorry if I need to keep drinking my Pepsi. I've also got the fan on, and I'm in my underwear, and all the windows are open. But it is really warm today. I guess because, you know, it's the solstice. It's a sunny day. So yeah, so then they've sort of driven off all the smaller predators. The larger predators drive off all the smaller predators from these from like the whales, the dead whales and stuff. And now the smaller predators now find this is something I forgot to explain earlier. But what I've written here is they've driven the smaller predators to look for a new food source, which they find in the infinitely replenishing burgers. Which is something I forgot to explain when I was explaining the setup of this infinite McDonald's world. And that is that even though there's like no workers, there's no humans to keep making the burgers just infinitely appear. The burgers just keep refreshing, I guess. Like, each day. If a burger's been eaten, the next day the burger will reappear. How does this work? I don't know. It works the same way as it makes the McDonald's infinite, okay? So, It's just in my mind, a McDonald's without a burger is like an angel without its wings. You need to have it without, you know, without the infinitely replenishing burgers. I don't think it's an infinite McDonald's. I think it's just like the backrooms, and that would be boring. Because then eventually everything would die because it'd run out of food. So that's why I've got the infinitely replenishing burgers in there. And there's, you know, there's infinite replenishing chips as well, infinite replenishing like salads. I don't know what else they do at McDonald's. Apple pies, infinitely hot apple pies. You know, they've got like the soda fountains, ice cream machine. Ice cream machine's broke though, so. Okay, so yeah, so how this works, you know, so now that, you know, stuff like raccoons, like ferrets, I don't know, smaller predators, like a little cat maybe, they now eat the burgers that keep reappearing. And they still need to be on their toes though, of course, because they've still got the big predators to worry about. Even though the big predators are now just scavengers, they could still go after like the little guys. So you still gotta watch out. You still gotta watch out. You know, if you're like a coyote or something, I don't know. Coyotes, they're kind of weird. They're kind of in the middle ground between like a big predator and a small predator, I feel. They're an interesting case. I didn't write anything about coyotes in here, but I guess, maybe they split into like two. One branch is like a scavenger, one branch is like a burger eater, which is why I called, it's what I class these now as, because you can't really, there is no analogue for this in our real world, so now we have the scavengers and the burger eaters, alright? And yeah, because so many animals died in the first part, in the Genesis era, they're not going to rot away with because there's no like fungi or plants or bacteria or anything. This like food source of like loads and loads of like dead marine animals, this lasts a really, really long time. So, and then you get, you know, stuff like a lion and like a bear and like a wolf. They sort of lose their hunting instincts. Then they lose their like hunting adaptations. And evolve to be scavengers because they're scavenging on the dead meat, so they don't need to hunt anything, but they still got like big teeth because they're like still tearing at meat and stuff. And yeah, so the smaller like predators, which were scavengers, but were driven off that niche and are now burger eaters, they still have like their like instincts, and they still need to be on high alert because the scavengers still pose a threat because they're still like really big and territorial. So you know, these little guys, they still sort of retain their like instincts, whereas the big ones don't really as much. And yeah, so there's loads of insects still because of all the insects eating like the dead things and like laying their eggs and stuff. But kind of it's getting less than it was during the Genesis era because like the scavengers are eating the meat, that leaves less meat for the insects. So of course when a scavenger dies, the insects would eat that, but then so would the other scavengers, so But anyway, so the birds, insect-eating birds, end up like thriving during this time. You know, it's like I said earlier. If you put me in front of a big wheel of cheese, I'm gonna eat the big wheel of cheese. If you put like a bird that eats insects in a room with loads of insects, it's gonna eat all the insects. living in like an enclosed area for them though. Many of them then evolved to become flightless because there's not really a need to fly around if you're in like a room with a ceiling and like it's all like sort of boxy. It's an infinite McDonald's, okay? Like a bird flying around, it wouldn't really need to fly around. So a lot of birds are now flightless. And so this era, the scavenger era, lasts for thousands of years. The millions of dead herbivores and the dead aquatic life, they eventually run out, of course. It is a finite resource, and they eventually run out. The scavengers, you know, like, then sort of turn to cannibalism, eating their own kind. But then some of the scavengers begin encroaching on the food source of the infinite burgers, driving the burger eaters into an entirely new niche. That is word for word what I wrote about this. Like last year I wrote all this. It's crazy. So, what used to be the scavengers, you know, as in they used to be like the apex predators, then they turned to scavengers. Now they're the burger eaters. Now they just eat burgers, and it's sort of like a grazing animal, I suppose, where they just graze on these burgers and like other McDonald's food, I guess. But it's just funnier to call them like infinite burgers and like burger regeneration, whatever, because that's just funny to me. Yeah, so they're not technically like herbivores because burgers still got meat in them, but in a way they are like a grazing animal because they're not hunting anything, they're just eating the burgers as they appear. If, you know, if that makes any sense to anybody. If anyone watches this video, give it a like and a subscribe, because I'm losing my marbles talking about infinite McDonald's. Oh my god. Okay. And now because of that, this has then opened up once again the apex predator niche. What used to be an apex predator now just eats burgers. So now what was previously the little guys are now able to evolve to eat what used to be the big guys, because they would obviously reduce in size. They would evolve to be sort of reduced in size if they're just eating burgers. They don't need to be big and territorial like they were. And so the sort of like stuff, you know, like a fox or like a mongoose or like a raccoon, they are now filling the apex predator niche, preying on the burger grazers. Now this, I've just got to read in its entirety what I wrote rather than trying to explain it, because I think I phrased it pretty well. Sorry, I need another sip. Meanwhile, in the toilet biome, octopi have been slowly developing into a more land-based species. Meanwhile, in the toilet biome. At first needing to return to their bowls to breathe and moisten their skin after venturing out to feed on fries and corpses, they become less and less dependent on their toilet homes, especially after some adapt to use the soda fountains. Honestly, I don't see any flaw in my logic there. I think that could happen in real. Yeah, So, like I said earlier, the octopi, because they're intelligent, they figured out how to like they can leave for a little bit, and obviously evolution then favors octopi with like thicker skin who can leave for longer periods of time, and then eventually, you know, they become fully terrestrial except for the soda fountains. They still need to like use the toilets and the soda fountains occasionally, I guess, to maybe like lay eggs. I don't know how cephalopods, how they reproduce. And so now, here we have, so that was the age of the grazers, I guess, and that lasted for like millions of years. But now, something interesting is happening. The terrestrial octopi, they've retained their intelligence from how they were before, and it's only grown, they've only evolved to be more and more intelligent each time. So now, intelligent I'll just read this. In one section of the McDonald sphere, they take notice of how a lion descendant feeds on the infinite burgers and begins farming them like cattle, allowing them to eat the burgers while protecting them from predatory possum descendants, then killing the lions for meat and hide later. So these intelligent octopuses are now farmers farming these burger eating lions. And this isn't the only place in the McDonald sphere where this has happened, because it's basically like different continents, right, in this like infinite McDonald's. So different animals would end up becoming dominant in different areas because they're separated by distance, sort of thing, you know? Speciation and shit. So yeah, this sort of like farming dynamic ends up occurring in different areas as well. And what I wrote is there's crows farming tigers, or at least, you know, like they're descendants of crows farming the descendants of tigers, the descendants of baboons farming the descendants of crocodiles. And this is where I do go off the deep end a little bit, because I was like, well, creatures that we might not think of as intelligent now, you know, they might then evolve intelligence. So I got mongooses that farm hyenas, because the mongoose is my favourite animal. The best animal in the world is a mongoose. So I say that the mongooses rule the McDonald sphere. Okay, guys, it's my it's my sleepover, and I get to choose what animal rules the McDonald sphere. So now, of course, because they become intelligent, they start making like their societies and stuff. The McSocieties start spreading across the McDonald sphere. They eventually adopt different cultures and mythoses, and then eventually they will meet the other intelligent species. Some fight, some trade, some make uneasy alliances. Civilization has come to the infinite McDonald's. And so this is it. This is the era of McSociety. This is the McSociety era. And in such a controlled environment, there's no more like mass extinctions, you know. like what happened at the very beginning to all the herbivores and to all the aquatic animals. Because it's, you know, it's controlled environment, controlled temperature, there's constantly replenishing food, you know, the infinite burgers, there's like infinite space for everything. There really is not much of a way that things can progress from here. So this is where I called it the end, and here they are, guys. The intelligent species of the infinite McDonald's. So we have here the Crotopus, which is which is named after one of my friend's characters, who has like a cult where they all pee pee poo poo stinky farty. And I named them that because, you know, they evolved from the toilets, so that kind of fits to me. And as you can see, they've used like the spatula as sort of like a farming tool, I suppose. The front and back tentacles have become sort of like feet to stand on, and they've got the beak in the middle there, and some sort of like bioluminescent bloop, 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 that can communicate through the flashing lights. And then the 4 tentacles in the middle are like they're grabbing hands to grab things with. Now here's the baboons, which I'm really proud of this name, Lycanthropithecus, because they look a bit like a werewolf. Because what I pictured happening with the baboons is that they first adapted to be sort of like the apex predators feeding on the burger grazers, and then they became farmers of them, and that's how I pictured that going. So they sort of have a more sort of ferocious appearance. And with the clothing that I got on these guys, where it's made out of like McDonald's stuff, was inspired a bit by this page of Codex Seraphinianus, which I spoke about last episode. It's my favourite book in the world. Where, as you can see, this guy, his like clothing and his like tools are like made out of you know, like old like tarmac and old road signs and stuff, and I just thought that was really interesting. So they have used like that as like clothes. As you can see, decorated his mane with straws. Are they paper straws or plastic straws? We don't have to worry about the turtles anymore though, because they died at the start. And it's sort of got like a skirt made out of chicken nugget boxes. So yeah, and then there's Corosapien, which is you know, like an intelligent like corvid. So like these are the intelligent crows, and they are flightless, but they still have their wings, and they have re-evolved sort of like theropod claws. They've got like little hands on their wings now, which can be used for grabbing, can be used for climbing as well. Maybe they evolved in like the play area. They lay their eggs in the ball pit, and so they need like these little fingers to climb with, perhaps. And the beak as well has got like these sharp edges, so they can hold things more easily. That's sort of like a I guess what they use to like spear the burgers with when they flip them over. Again, I don't work at a McDonald's, I'm not sure. And I remember ages ago seeing a video of like a budgie sticking its old feathers somehow. I don't know how it did it, but it got like old feathers that it shed and put it back on the top of its head, And I thought that was pretty cute, and I thought it was quite interesting as well how like the bird chose to do that as like a some sort of bird fashion statement. So these are like the top of a Happy Meal box that he's put in his hair like that. And then of course my favourite, the Neo Goose. It's a Neo Mongoose. Brand new Mongoose. You thought Mongooses were cool? Here's Mongoose 2. If Mongooses are so cool, where's Mongoose 2? Mongoose 2 is right here. So they wear like the little, they wear the cups as like a, you know, a sort of like a shirt or like a dress type thing. I think it's really cute. And I picture these guys as having large social groups, sort of like how meerkats do, which are a type of mongoose. They would have like large social groups, and they'd be sort of intelligent that way, sort of socially intelligent, rather than specifically like the tool use that you see with these guys going on. But they would still have like some kind of tool, I reckon, but mostly I'd say it would be more like a social thing, like a group thing. I don't know. But so that was my ideas for the Infinite McDonald's, and I typed this all out on my Discord server, which you can join through the link in that little old description. What were the problems with my idea that people had, and what were other people's ideas about this when I posted this on the server? So, one of the first things that got mentioned was by my friend Mia, who said, another thing I might suggest is that some herbivores such as deer are opportunistic carnivores, as they eat meat when there is no other option available. So perhaps they could evolve into predator animals over time. And yeah, I didn't think of that. I mean, I don't really know much about deer. They are her favourite animal, so I feel like maybe she's also biased in wanting the deer to survive, like how I was biased in wanting the mongooses to get a society and become an intelligent species. But yeah, she is right, and that is a interesting idea, I think, actually, of sort of like flipping it on its head and having like these you know, like big predatory deer, sort of going after like wolves, which are now being farmed like sheep, and then you have like a crow sort of trying to fend off this big like thing that's trying to eat its stock, I suppose. That would be like really interesting, as like everything's flipped on its head now, sort of deal. And yeah, and another person on my friend in the server, Aladite, said, "I'm surprised there isn't a race of herbivores that evolved to be able to eat the fries constantly or evolve an omnivorous diet." Yeah, so again, the issue being a lack of representation of herbivore species, I suppose. And I think, I can't remember where, somebody else, I think it might have been Mia again, but I can't find it again. But someone pointed out that in some places, where, you know, some areas of the world where there's a lot of people who are like vegan or vegetarian, there's a lot more like plant-based options on the menu. So herbivores would have something to eat after all, if there was like a section of McDonald's that had more plant-based options. Because again, like I said, these aren't like identical McDonald's. They're all different McDonald's joined together. So perhaps in that area, that section would be more suitable for the herbivores. But I still think that they would end up all getting hunted. Because like I said, if it's like 1 million of every animal, or however many it was, I think it was 100 million actually. If it was like 100 million of every animal, that is still like a 1-to-1 on predators and prey. You're still gonna get eventually, there's like one predator for every prey animal. I think that eventually the predators would outcompete the prey animals, I suppose. It's just like I said, if you put a big wheel of cheese in front of me, I'm pouncing, I'm eating that. You know, and then after that's dead, it's gonna go eat another one, you know? I just think that the predatory animals would outlive the prey. But anyway, that's just my idea of the infinite McDonald's theorem. Let me know in the comments section what you guys think of the infinite McDonald's. What animals you reckon would dominate in this infinite McDonald's sphere. What would your new species be that you would come up with? Would there be any sort of crazy adaptation, something crazy? Because I see this is more on like the crazy side. These two are more crazy and separate from what the original is, whereas these are more normal looking. Like the mongoose is just sort of upright now, and the crow is just bigger and spikier. But yeah, maybe something crazy happens. Maybe like a lungfish survives in the septic system and ends up like re-evolving like tetrapods, and it ends up really crazy. Maybe, who knows? Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I've been updating my website a lot recently, so I don't know when the next video will come out, but hopefully I do have another Spectrutex Labs video in the works. I know I haven't done one for a while, and that's like the reason why 90% of people subscribe to me, but there will be another Spectrutex Labs, and the website will be so awesome and epic and better. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Peace out.